This podcast is brought to you by Touch a Life.
Welcome to TALRadio. You have tuned in to yet another episode of Mindful Conversations with Dr. Sampath. Dr. Sampath, with over 30 years of experience, is a renowned thought leader and a mindful entrepreneur. In our previous episode, we explored his valuable insights on values and leadership. And today, we dive into the topic of mindfulness, a widely discussed concept in social media, but often misunderstood in terms of how it can be practically applied in our daily lives. Let's explore how mindfulness can truly impact us. So, welcome to yet another episode, Dr. Sampath.
Thank you, Pavithra. I've been enjoying these conversations with you. Hopefully, our audience will also enjoy them.
It has been delightful to know about your life and instances that you have faced over these 3 decades of experience. And last conversation was we covered a lot of topics when it came to values and leadership. And I see that the term mindfulness is something which you have often used, be it your bio in LinkedIn or during your conversations in other interviews. So I would like to start by asking, what does mindfulness mean to you?
Yeah, this is a topic that has been widely discussed. Everybody today seems to be a mindful trainer, mindful coach, mindful this, mindful that. And I do feel that this subject has not been very deeply explored as yet by all. Some of them have gone very deep into it. To me, mindfulness is our ability to be 100% where we are. If I'm having this conversation with you, is my mind 100% in this conversation? Not about the future, not about the past. Are we available to see what is going on at this moment very, very clearly? To me, that is mindfulness. My mindfulness is my ability to be in the present completely. And that seems to be a challenge for most of us because technically, I tell this very jovially, but I mean every word of what I say. My mind is in one place, body is in one place, soul, I don't even know where I lost it. But if I can bring all of them together, mind, body, and soul in single place, that is mindfulness. And to me, that is very, very critical for you to be able to be appropriate or relevant to the context. So mindfulness is not for the sake of mindfulness. Mindfulness is for the sake of being relevant to the context. Our ability to do what is required is possible when we are mindful. When we are preoccupied with something else, then our biases, our judgments, everything starts kicking in. And our ability to be relevant to the context gets messed up in the process. So to me, mindfulness is our ability to be in the present 100%. It's a journey, it's a practice. If you ask me, Sampath, are you 100%? My answer is, there are moments I'm 100% and there are moments I'm wavering. The good thing is, the minute I start wavering, my mind starts wavering, I'm aware, so I pull back my mind into being in the present. So that is, to me, mindfulness.
That's a wonderful definition. I really liked when you said, it should, our mind, our soul, and even our body should be in one space. And that is something of a struggle, especially when it comes to this particular generation where we just have so many things to distract us. It's just not as easy as it was back then, I think. And coming back to the topic of mindfulness, when it comes to your entrepreneurial ventures, you have used the term mindfulness a lot. And I think it is something that you believe is quite critical when it comes to being an entrepreneur. So what is the role that mindfulness plays when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Mindfulness plays a very, very critical role. In fact, this morning, I had a long conversation with a very, very successful entrepreneur who is a story from rag to riches. What happens to many entrepreneurs is they forget that what got them success is not what will get them success in the future. Their initial success came because they did everything that was needed. And there comes a time they start believing what I did was what brought success to me, rather than my ability to be relevant to the context is what brought success to me. So when situation changes, they respond to the new situation from their past. success. And that need not be the right approach to deal with that particular situation. So an entrepreneur, if he or she has to be successful, they need to constantly read the situation and respond to the situation to be able to be successful. We know that the success rate in any startup is very, very low today. For every one success, there are maybe hundreds of failures. We talk about one success, we don't talk about those hundreds of failures, and we don't go into looking at why it actually failed. To me, whatever the idea is, if somebody can be completely relevant to the context, relevant to the needs, and when we talk about entrepreneurship, what is relevance, what is need? I mean, needs of all the stakeholders. There are many stakeholders when you are an entrepreneur. You have your customer, you have the society, you have the investors, you have yourself. Are you doing things that are relevant to all the concerned stakeholders? Are you doing things that will be a long term? Look at some of the biggest failures. I mean, somewhere they get caught into their success so much. And unfortunately, the investors go behind success and they want to pump in money into the success without realizing that, hey, I'm pumping in money into the idea, not just the success. And then there comes a huge bubble burst. I mean, currently, some of the stories in the edtech startup, we are aware of how failure is hitting them on the face. So therefore, I think our ability to be relevant is something that every entrepreneur should keep in mind in a startup situation and continue to nurture and sharpen that ability to be relevant to the context in every situation. Then their success is assured. But if they start believing at some point of time, it is their success which brought them, their way of doing business is what brought them success, then if they start getting caught with their ways of doing things and not being relevant to the situation, then failure starts showing up for them. To me, mindfulness is a very, very critical attribute every startup entrepreneur. Why only startup entrepreneur? Every entrepreneur should nurture in themselves. That when I get up this morning, can I forget yesterday and look at this today afresh? Look at what are the realities of today. Maybe something has changed from the time you went to bed to the time you woke up. Are you capturing that and are you putting that into your decision making so that this morning when you make a decision, you're more relevant than what you were yesterday? That is a very, very critical part as far as I'm concerned.
It's a wonderful way to put it. You were talking about so many stakeholders being involved when you're an entrepreneur. And that does put a lot of pressure on you because mindfulness is something, at least according to me, it is when it's focused on one particular situation or circumstances, right? So when you have so many such things that are influencing your day-to-day decision making, that gives you a lot of pressure. In those specific situations, how will you be able to be mindful? How do you bring it out in you?
First of all, let's understand what brings pressure. If you typically analyze where is my anxiety, where is my pressure, where is my fear coming from, most of the time it is from the future. What if I fail? What if something goes wrong? What if this customer, I don't get this customer? The minute I am in the future, I'm not in the present. And the minute I get caught with these anxieties and these pressures, then my ability to stay in the present and do what is required is becoming weaker. And most of the entrepreneurs are struggling. The minute one quarter their numbers are not coming, they're not sitting and understanding, hey, what is that is going wrong because of which we are not getting the numbers? Where are we not focusing our energies? Where are we losing out? But everybody adds to, all the stakeholders add to this pressure. The investor is saying, hey guys, you're going down on numbers. Somebody else is saying, hey boss, we are not getting where we need to be. So therefore, the future anxiety starts building up so much that you start making decisions which are not necessarily appropriate to your business. We start losing out, and the spiral goes on. And soon you realize that what was such a successful business is beginning to see failure on its face. So therefore, I need to first understand, where is my pressure coming from? Sometimes I think what we end up doing is we don't necessarily understand what is the right pace of growing. So we grow so fast, and we think the number is what is very important. We don't think, is our work reaching those many number of people? So therefore we are stuck in wrong metrics sometimes, and we get carried away by the metrics, not realizing that metrics is not the right metrics we should be following. I should be following, hey, what is the purpose of my business? Where did I start? Am I getting distracted? I have seen many businesses, they start with a very, very noble idea. Yeah. And there comes a time in their business cycle that they are doing less and less of what they started with, and they are doing more and more of what the investor wants, what somebody else wants, and they start chasing numbers, and suddenly they realize that it's becoming very pressurizing, it's becoming stressful, it's meeting the demands of everybody. An entrepreneur doesn't have the courage to tell, hold on, I think we are going too fast, and this speed can make us meet with an accident. So let us grow at a pace that is relevant to our industry, our business. So everybody wants to become rich overnight, and everybody falls overnight. So this is a very interesting game that goes on. And when you watch such games, you only smile at it because you know what is coming. The minute you shifted your focus from why you started the business to what everybody is wanting and how different it is from the very purpose for which you started the business. So therefore, it is a big challenge for many entrepreneurs to stay mindful and to be relevant. And therefore, the price they end up paying is very huge.
I would also like to understand that, was there some sort of a switch? Like, was there some point of time where you understood that you were being anxious about the future and you switched to being mindful in your personal journey?
I think for me, one of the things that is very important is what I talk, I practice first. Yeah. Because if I can't apply it on me, how can I expect somebody to apply on themselves? So I had in fact, recently I had a conversation with somebody who recommended my work to two very large companies. And they were kind enough to call me for a presentation. I went and made a presentation. They liked what I was doing. And I meticulously followed up with them twice. And third time I didn't follow up. They didn't get back to me. And I said, let it go. No issues. My friend called me and said, what happened? Did you follow up with them? I said, I followed up with them twice. And after that, there has not been any further movement. So my friend asked me why you didn't follow up further. And I told them, look, I do organizational development work. And if I follow up more than required, and they give me a business because they want to either respect you or they are fed up with my follow-up, I'm giving them something which may not be relevant to them. Typically, you feed a person who's hungry if you want to make them enjoy what they are eating. But if somebody is already feeling full and somebody is not feeling that your work is not relevant to them, and if you go and thrust your work on them, at the end of that assignment, they may feel that, well, we did something, we didn't get the kind of results we wanted. Because they did it not because they needed it. They did it because somebody recommended you, somebody spoke about your work, and you were pushing them to do something. So therefore, it is important to be very, very relevant and mindful in how even you choose your clients, how you work with your clients. That is very critical. But many of us think getting that number somehow, even if they don't need it, I will go and thrust my work on them. And some, out of sheer politeness, end up giving you some work, and they soon realize that the work didn't give the kind of result that was expected out of it, just because it was not something that they needed. So do we have the patience to wait for the right client so that what you do with them becomes very, very meaningful? Or understand the need of the customer in the real sense and work towards fulfilling that need. then the business will. So today somewhere we get distracted, and we are not worried whether it is needed or not. We just go and thrust ourselves, and that becomes a failure. So for me, I've not worked with more than 3 or 4, max 5 clients in a year, because I need to pay attention to each of them very, very deeply, and I need to be relevant to them, and I need to be context sensitive to them, and that you can't do with many clients. So I have consciously realized that it's not that you grow your business at any cost. You should enjoy what you're doing, and for whoever you're doing what you're doing, they should enjoy what you're doing. If both these are in place, your business will succeed, and it will continue to succeed over a period of time.
Wonderfully put. We were talking about how fast-paced it is these days, and especially when it comes to social media, every potential entrepreneur, even at the beginning of the journey, they want to project success. So it is quite fast-paced when it comes to that. In such an environment where you feel anxious when you are seeing a peer or a potential competitor doing well, there is a possibility for you to go into that fast-paced mode and not be mindful in those moments. What are the things that we should remember in those specific moments when we are feeling anxiety because of the fast-paced nature of this environment?
As you were asking this question, the image that was running in my mind is that of a juggler. A guy who juggles. And I am not very sure what's the world record, but last time when I was trying to Google, I think the best juggler was juggling with something like 38 or 36 items. Now, I can tell you, when you're juggling, and today's business world, the variables that you have to confront have increased tremendously. Maybe 30 years ago, the variables were 5 or 6, and today the variable could be as much as 50 or 60. It has gone 10x. Now, a juggler who is juggling with 36 items, if he even for a fraction of a second moves his mind out of that juggling, something will fall apart. And if one item falls, he gets anxious. Oh, I missed one item, the next item falls, and soon he fails. So today, for an entrepreneur, when the pressure and the variables are continuously increasing, it is important to sit and understand, how can I become more and more focused? On the other hand, what they start looking at is, how do we get distracted? I mean, why do we get distracted? How do we get distracted? How do we bring back the focus? Should be the actual question that an entrepreneur should ask in a high pressure situation. First of all, why did this pressure come from? Did I chew more than what I can? Or was I not prepared to chew what I'm wanting to chew? Am I putting growth at the cost of my people, or vice versa? So I think we don't ask the basic questions. And soon we get caught with what's happening to numbers. Recently, I was watching a film on the flight when we were coming from Europe to India. Tumse ye na ho paega. It's a very beautiful film, and I believe every entrepreneur should watch that. Every startup guy should watch that. Where the whole cycle of starting with a great idea, the essence of the idea was wonderful, it succeeded, then comes an investor, and the investor creates enough trouble, they fail, and they go back to what they started, and they succeed. So sometimes we don't sit and try to figure out, where did we start, where have we ended up, how do we keep the fundamentals not shaken? I think in today's world, many of us have got caught with what others think about us, and that becomes a big distraction rather than doing what we need to do in the middle of what others think. So sometimes the world has its own parameters to evaluate you. But before that, can you put your own parameters to evaluate yourself? So the pressure that we talk about in an entrepreneur comes out of getting deviated from what one started, getting very anxious about the future, getting carried away by success, and moving away from being relevant to the needs of the stakeholders. I think if one can switch back or pull back and start looking at all these parameters without getting distracted, I don't think why success should be a challenge for any of these entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. And coming to the techniques of mindfulness, We see a lot of social media snippets on how to be mindful, like 5 minutes of mindfulness per day. So I feel maybe when it comes to entrepreneurship, it is not that relevant, because what matters in entrepreneurship is an experience from another renowned entrepreneur who has had experience with using certain mindfulness techniques in his own ventures. What are those mindfulness techniques that have come to use when you were starting out your venture, which has been incorporated within your ventures? And what do you feel about it, and how do you evaluate its success?
I think I was very lucky having teachers and mentors in my life who intervened appropriately at various points of time in my life. When I was doing my master's from Madras School of Social Work, in the beginning of my second year, one of my teachers who was my mentor till he lived, Professor T.K. Nair, he called me and said, go learn meditation. I was hardly 23. Typically, I would have challenged him asking, why only me, why not the other students? But I quietly went and learned meditation, transcendental meditation at the age of 23. And I can tell you, even today, I practice that meditation. 31 years have gone by. 41 years have gone by. I still meditate. I can tell you for sure, this meditation has helped me tremendously. In fact, as I'm talking to you, on 11th, I'm going for my 10-day Vipassana. That is my 4th Vipassana. And I intend to do at least a 20-day Vipassana in next 3 years. And maybe do a 45-day Vipassana in next 5 years. If you can't take that time off, and if you think you are so busy that you don't have time for yourself, I can guarantee you're just not hurting yourself, you're hurting your business. You're hurting the future of all those who are dependent on you. To me, one of the techniques that will help you to be mindful is your ability to reflect, introspect, and meditate. So that is one technique that I use in my life very regularly. Even last night before going to bed, I meditated and I had such a nice sleep. Nothing woke me up. Second important thing that you need to keep in mind, and I don't know if I shared this in our last interview. I was working with Ford in the US, their world headquarters. I was working with the emerging markets team. And I was given an hour with the head of learning and development at that point of time at Ford. Their budget that year was $80 million for training and development. And my friend was taking me to that meeting and she asked me, are you prepared for the meeting? And the answer I gave was, I did extra meditation this morning. So when I went and I had an hour with this person, very difficult to get that kind of time. And I was already doing some business with Ford. So typically somebody would have said, how can I get a little more share of that $80 million? But I didn't worry about that. I said, and at that time, Ford had 320,000 employees world over. My question was, if this person is responsible for 320,000 employees learning and development with a $80 million budget, it would be very nice for me to understand how does he see learning. And my 1 hour conversation was on learning. Pavithra, at the end of that conversation, I created a framework on how to learn and how to be mindful in our learning. What we discovered at the end of that conversation was, at Ford, people were still telling people what to do. And my realization in that conversation was, how do we make people realize what they need to do? Telling people what to do and making them realize what to do are two different things. And to me, learning and development should focus on making people realize what they need to do rather than telling them what to do. Because when you tell people, listen, when they realize, they implement. And based on that learning, that understanding and insight I got out of that meeting, I created a workshop on learning how to learn and the difference between mindfulness and mindlessness. And I can tell you, I have led over 800 such workshops in the last 2 decades. And I have earned so much more money that I would have got in an assignment that had I pitched in that meeting, which would have given me maybe another $100,000 perhaps. So therefore, if you are mindful in that conversation, then allow that conversation to evolve. You may get what you didn't expect in that conversation. But if you go with he has an $80 million budget, let me see what share I can get. You're so preoccupied with the future. You're not being in the conversation. And I had gifted him a book of mine, Discovery. So he took that book that home that evening. He played with his children, and next day morning he came and insisted that I should sign that book for him. It has to be autographed because he felt that book was so relevant for him. So I think somewhere we are not being mindful. We are walking into a conversation expecting something out of it, rather than purely being 100% available in that conversation, and to take what comes out of it rather than demand what one wants out of it. So many years ago, I wrote a quote for myself. I went with an intention to bring her back with me. I did everything I could. When I left, she refused to follow me. Few weeks later, I just went to be with her. When I left, she followed me. So our ability to just be where we are is so important. And she could be a business success. She could be a business deal. She could be anything. But are we going there just to be? Or are we going there with an intention to win, succeed, bring? I think there's a big difference. There can be somebody who is listening to this who may say, hey, this doesn't go well. This guy is talking too much of philosophy. But I can tell that I have seen success in this, and I have seen many people seeing success in this. You'll have to believe for you to really understand how one can succeed by just being. And we have a Ayurveda business in which I'm one of the core founders. I think our journey has been a very clear evidence of this. We just do what is needed. We wait for the opportunity rather than push for opportunities. And when they happen, we see that it blossoms and the business suddenly takes a leap.
I think through this conversation, we have covered a lot of topics. And would you like to summarize it in maybe 3 points for the future entrepreneurs?
This is a challenge for me because there is nothing called as quick fix and there is nothing called as free advice. Because your advice, I mean, I only tell this story to people. There is a teacher and the students were listening to something this teacher was saying, and the teacher was telling them a story. And one of the students said, Master, you tell us stories but never reveal their meaning to us. And the master said, how do you like it if someone offered you a fruit and chewed it before giving it to you? Sometimes giving these 3 points becomes you chew your life and give them that, and that's not going to work. However, having asked the question, let me share with you what is that is needed for you to start chewing better. One of the things that I would definitely recommend that learn to reflect, take time off to reflect, take time off to meditate, take time off to be with yourself. Yeah. Take time off to understand your context. Have a quiet time in a day. That's very, very important. Another very important thing that I would ask entrepreneurs to focus on, ask if you are in the shoe of each of your stakeholder, what would they look for from you? That will give you a better insight into understanding the need of the customer. And if you are going to fulfill a need, you will not run out of a business. So I think that's going to be very, very important. The third thing that I would ask every entrepreneur to keep in mind and every human being to keep in mind is the past is past, the future is future. The thing that is available with you is the present. If you bring the past into the present, you will do what you did and you will get what you got. If you bring the future anxiety into the present, you are going to miss out understanding the present. But if you can see the present as it is and believe that you have enough wisdom and the appropriate wisdom will show up for you to deal with the present, then your success is assured. But if you start thinking, I know, then you're going to be in trouble. There's one truth that all of us should understand. There are no two identical situations in our life.
Yeah.
At least in one dimension, the situation has changed, which is time. The conversation that we started with and the conversation we are ending is different. 30 to 40 minutes have gone by. The context has changed. So can I be aware and try to do what is needed in this situation rather than do what I did in another situation? It's not that what worked then will not work here. If what worked then is to work here, let it come out of your awareness, not come out of your success in the past. So therefore, stay where you are, look at what is going on, be relevant to what is being demanded out of you and provide that. I think that is what is going to bring you success. And when people start appreciating you for success, take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, today, as we are talking about these interviews, I'm very clear why I'm giving these interviews, not because I'm successful or I'm a failure. I have said, let my 60s be a decade of sharing what I have understood of life. And not that all my understandings are perfect. Some of them may be useful to some of them. It's not that this understanding will be useful for everyone. But if I start believing I have understood life and I have failed in life, it's not that I've succeeded all the time. And when I go and understand or try to analyze my failures, maybe I was not relevant to the context. Maybe something which one of my team members did was not relevant to the context, because of which I lost that deal. When I understand that and I learn that, I realize next time I need to be mindful of doing what is relevant rather than what I think is relevant. So I believe that today's Gen Z and the generation that I see is super smart. They are so equipped, they can do whatever they want. If only they can learn how to be in the present, how to be relevant, how to do what is required, they can see a lot more success than what we have seen. I wish each entrepreneur the very best for them to do what is needed than what they think they want and succeed in every initiative, entrepreneurial or otherwise in life, so that they can keep growing in life.
What a beautiful way to conclude. Thank you so much, Dr. Sampath. It was so good talking about mindfulness to you and what you have experienced over these past 3 decades of being an entrepreneur. And I'm sure that this is going to give a lot of value to our listeners. With that, we come to an end of this episode where we talked about the mindfulness in Mindful Conversations with Dr. Sampath. And we'll be coming back with more episodes, and so stay tuned and take care of yourself and be mindful, like Dr. Sampath said. And I would also urge you to go and subscribe to Dr. Sampath's Soul of Kathas, which is a beautiful Instagram page where you get snippets of information, a bit of history, a bit of storytelling. And it's a wonderful space to be, and there is a rarity of content that is authentic, and I would urge you to go and subscribe to it. So thank you once again. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Pavithra. I enjoy these conversations as much as you enjoy asking me questions.
Thank you, sir. So see you for the next episode.
You have just listened to TALRadio podcast. For more podcasts, visit www.touchalife.org.